Well, I feel a desire and a strength, an inner strength from swimming butterfly. It's almost a religion in the sense that I believe so fundamentally in my ability to do something, and in this case it is to swim, and I can feel inside how badly I want to win, and that's the feeling that I get just before I race. People say, well, what is there? What makes you win? You know, give me some of that magic. Give me, you know, tell me what to do. Well, I can't. I mean, it's almost like a magnetism, if you will. You can't view it, you can't see it, but there's something that draws me to that wall faster than somebody else.
New Zealander Anthony Mosse, gold medal winner for the 200 metres butterfly at the 1990 Commonwealth Games in Auckland, successfully defending the title he'd earned 4 years before at Edinburgh. Butterfly specialists are known as flyers, and Mosse is currently rated the world's #1 flyer over 200 metres. He's a major sporting star in New Zealand, and he's made many victory speeches.
5/100th's off my best time, which is the 3rd fastest time in history. That'll be the 4th fastest, so I'm pretty happy with that.
And yet, the home crowds who so vigorously cheer Anthony Mosse on know little about the man behind the medals. Presented by ASB Bank. Anthony Mosse was born in 1964 in Hong Kong, the first child of expatriate New Zealanders Peter and Joy Mosse. Peter Mosse was an airline pilot working for Cathay Pacific, and Joy had been an air hostess for Teal.
I probably couldn't have asked for a better childhood. You know, there was a lot of fun involved, and people think, well, Hong Kong, it's hustle bustle, high-rise buildings, but we lived out of the city. We could go down to the beach and play around, so I had, you know, a real typical, almost Kiwi childhood existence.
He was swimming before he could walk, even crawl. He would be in a carry cot on the boat, and we would put the little water wings around his upper arms and lower him into the water to one of us. I think when he was about maybe 6 or 7 years of age, the swimming lessons started. And then along came a coach who seemed to think that there was a potential there.
Once I'd had him for about a year, I knew we'd got an outstanding prospect on our hands. He was a very, very natural butterflyer. He moved like a dolphin through the water. He was just absolutely fantastic. When Anthony was leaving Hong Kong, I said to his parents, if this guy doesn't win the Olympic gold, whoever's coaching him will have failed.
It always seemed to come so easy, and people always used to say, gee, Anthony, that looks great. You look like you're very good at it. And I guess very impressionable at that age. When someone said they liked you doing something, you tried to be better at it. I didn't see it as the hardest stroke. I saw it as the most enjoyable stroke. At that age, it was something different, and not a lot of kids could do butterfly as well as I could.
At the age of 13, Anthony was sent to New Zealand to boarding school, a lifestyle that didn't allow as much scope for swimming training. 3.5 years later, though, his father retired, and the family re-established their home in New Zealand. Now a day pupil, Anthony could swim seriously again, and within 3 months he'd made the national team. It would have been a sensational achievement for any teenager, but all the more remarkable because Anthony had, well, funny feet.
Anthony's feet as a child, they were really quite flat, and I remember bringing him down to a specialist, and my husband said something has to be done about his feet, they're so flat.
I had special shoes made so that I could walk with a greater arch to be able to, you know, make me more comfortable and to support my feet, but don't tell my mum because I didn't wear them too much. It's kind of ironical now because my feet are my strength. You know, the hyperflexibility and mobility almost give me a fishtail existence in the pool. But outside of the swimming pool, I've appeared pretty clumsy, simply because they're so flexible that if I turn an ankle, it goes the whole way.
Anthony was selected to represent New Zealand at the 1982 Commonwealth Games in Brisbane, but his training was jeopardised by those hyper-flexible feet.
I was outside playing rugby with my brother. I put the ball on the ground and said, okay, I'm going to kick this into eternity. And again, my hyperflexibility came into play, and when I kicked the ball, I kicked more off the ground than anything. My ankle actually turned over, and instead of stopping, continued right past, and I actually broke the ankle joint in a couple of places.
So he was plaster from his ankle right up to below his knee, and they put a special plaster on so that he could swim. He got on his crutches into the car and off he went to swim and train twice a day with that plaster cast on. So, you know, he was very, very, very determined.
And I would come out of the pool after my practices and just blow dry the actual ankle. Cut a long story short, when the ankle came out of the cast, I'd actually burnt the skin with the blow dryer in a couple of places and had a little bit of mess, you know, on my foot.
Despite his injuries, Anthony finished 7th in the 200 metres butterfly final in a new national record time. Not bad for a teenager just out of a plaster cast in his first international competition. 2 years later, at the Olympic Games in Los Angeles, he made it to the finals in both the 100 and 200 metre butterfly events. Then came the 1986 Commonwealth Games in Edinburgh. In the 100 metres butterfly final, Anthony had collected a silver medal, a new personal best time and a new New Zealand record. But the 200 final was an even greater race for the Kiwi flyer.
Well, that was a very fast start.
It was very scary. I was very scared all afternoon. I didn't want to muck around or screw anything up.
But it's going to be a gold medal for New Zealand. And Anthony Mosse has done it.
I've been working for years for this particular moment. I'm so happy.
Anthony Mosse representing New Zealand.
Mum's been there right from the beginning. She's been vital. She's given me a tremendous amount of support. I think the key thing in my family, my mother and my father when he was alive, was they didn't push me and they didn't pull me. They never said, you've got to get up in the morning, you've got to do this. And my mother was particularly that way. You know, she would always be concerned a little bit the other way around, you know, are you pushing yourself too hard?
It's been a family thing. It's been something that we've all wanted to do. But it has been demanding on our lives because really everything has revolved around the swimming.
My brother, obviously, is somebody who I felt very strongly has given me a tremendous amount of support. He would be my most ardent supporter.
Go, Anthony!
Doesn't get enough credit. Adrian, my brother, is always in the sideline, helping to develop my mental frame before I compete.
I make him psych tapes, which he listens to before major events. But I think just being there, his brother, it's very important to me to know whether he's feeling good about himself and if there's anything I can do to help. Well, I'm very, very proud of him. Nice style, man. Keep your eye on the ball. Don't break your ankle.
Oh, he sliced it, He's off the second wall, third wall, fourth wall.
And it's a hole in one.
And it's a hole in one.
In 1984, Anthony took up a scholarship at Stanford University in California to study politics and economics. Stanford had a world-class swim team and a world-class academic reputation.
Anthony in the States is a very normal person. No one ever asks for his autograph. You know, we can go anywhere and do whatever we want. And he's quite like a kid. You know, I think sometimes in New Zealand he's treated, you know, a lot of people, for example, have been asking him about politics as though he could run tomorrow. And I laugh as though that's the same guy that on Sunday morning just wants to read the comics and, you know, have pancakes and goof around. He told me, although I wasn't there for it, that he tried to lead his whole freshman dorm to do a haka at the football game.
While at Stanford, Anthony became the only non-American ever to win the US National, US Open and US Collegiate titles for his specialist event. With a string of medals from World Championships, Worldston Games and Pan-Pacific Games behind him, Anthony prepared for the 1988 Olympic Games in Seoul. It should have been a countdown to the highlight of his career. Instead, it was the most testing and tragic time of his life. Just a few months before the Games, it became clear that his father Peter was dying.
I came home when my father was ill, spent a number of days here. Then at his wish and my family's wish, I went back to not disrupt my preparation for the Olympics too much. And those about a week period there before my father passed away was probably the worst of my life. I had a number of conversations with him, came this close to packing my bags and coming home again because, like anybody, for me anyway, my family is more important than anything, more than my swimming.
Anthony went back to training in Canada. And 10 days after Anthony arrived back, Peter passed away. So then there was this situation of, well, will I come home, won't I? And Adrian and I talked to him at great length and said, no, don't come. You were here when your father needed you. You know, we have all got to get on and do what we all set out to do.
A disappointing swim in his 100 metres heat left Anthony without a place in the final.
Before the race, I thought about Dad, and, you know, I have to make it work for me rather than against me. But I'm not going to make excuses for that, you know. I didn't swim it correctly, and that's the way it worked out.
When I met up with him in Seoul, I just felt inwardly quite disturbed to think that he looked so terribly thin and very drawn. And I just felt that, oh, let it all be over. You know, the public don't see this sort of thing. They just see the glamour of the racing and the flags going up and the presentation of medals, but they just don't know.
In lane 5, the World University Games champion representing New Zealand, Anthony Mosse.
The 200 final was Anthony's chance for greatness, though the favourite for the race was probably the giant West German flyer Michael Gross, the man they call the Albatross. They started side by side, but Gross led from start to finish, and Anthony had to settle for bronze.
Médaille de bronze. The bronze medalist representing New Zealand, Anthony Mosse.
You know, it had been a dream for him to go and win gold. He felt great confidence. But of course, his world was turned upside down. And to get the bronze, I felt so proud of him.
You know, you don't have an awful lot of control over what takes place in your life. There are a lot of extraneous circumstances that come around, but you do have total control over how you deal with them.
Putting Seoul behind him, Anthony began training in earnest again. The 1990 Commonwealth Games in Auckland, New Zealand were only 2 years away. For Anthony, they would be a homecoming and a triumph. A sponsorship deal with a major New Zealand bank made the tough training and competition schedule possible.
You know, swimming does not pay. The ASB Bank have looked after me for the last 2+ years. I've been very fortunate enough to have them on my side, paying for the bills and making sure that Anthony gets to travel to international competitions, and the preparation is as close as possible to what I wanted.
The regime included up to 1,000 sit-ups a day, done in sets of over 300. And of course, each week, up to 100 kilometres of pool work. But though training is an obvious prerequisite for success, what are the qualities that make Anthony a champion flyer?
He's a classical butterfly, and he keeps flat, and he's long stroking and times his kicks well with the stroke. He's got tremendous flexibility, good upper body strength, but I think his major strength is his kick. I think he's probably got the strongest kick in the world. You'll see real raw power out there. He's a very intelligent person. He's going to know exactly where he is, what he's doing, and he knows where his opposition is without focusing on them too much. He's a desperate winner. I've seen Anthony with swollen ankles, sore throats, sore ears, maybe a sore shoulder, and when he gets in that water and competes, he competes. That's what frightens his competitors a little bit. They know how terribly competitive he is. Anthony's intense. I think anyone that's ever dealt with Anthony knows that he's intense, and he gets a little bit more intense as he gets towards the competition, but that's his strength. He's a big-time swimmer. He loves to swim big.
There's no doubt that he has never put a poor race in a big competition, so that makes him a real challenge. You know, you don't expect Anthony to fall down in a big race. You know he's going to be there all the time, so that's a big strength for him. Psychologically, he certainly lets his competitors know that it's never going to be easy whether he's in front or behind. He's a great technician, great concentration. He certainly wants to be the best in the world, and he's knocking on that door. You know, third at the Olympic Games is, you know, could have been first the next day or first the day before.
Well, Anthony's been in the game a hell of a lot longer than I have, so he's very experienced and he knows what the game's all about. So in that respect, he's got to be, you know, on the cards to win the 100 and the 200 fly.
It's an absolute naturalness and affinity with the water. This is what makes a great natural swimmer.
Together with brother Adrian, Anthony has a special affinity for the air as well as for the water. The Mosse brothers' love of flying small planes is also a cherished link with their father.
Flying is something that's really important to Anthony, and strangely enough, it's almost a spiritual interest. Whenever we would go anywhere, if there was an airport nearby, we have to go up and see that airport, and he would stop and he would just look at the planes and he would think about flying, and I think probably his father.
They loved what their father did, and it was something that they've always wanted to do. In fact, I think perhaps if they'd had their way, they would have both become airline pilots.
How you doing over there, Adrian?
Fine, thanks, mate. How are you?
Great. How about we head over to Rangitoto?
Okay, follow me.
Butterfly's a lot like flying in a sense, particularly when you're in an outdoor pool and you can see a shadow on the bottom of the pool just gliding along. It's very individual, and you're totally in control. You have no one else to fall back on if you mess up. I just like the independence and the joy and the freedom of it all.
During his preparation for the 1990 Commonwealth Games, Anthony's contribution to New Zealand swimming was recognised by an MBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours List. And the Games themselves began for Anthony with another honour. For the opening ceremony in the main stadium, the Kiwi flyer flew the New Zealand flag at the head of the New Zealand team.
Well, there are two moments that I value higher than my medals, and memories will last forever, and the first one would be the MBE last year. Totally overwhelmed, and then also carrying the flag at the Commonwealth Games at the opening ceremony. Two things, memories that I'll never forget.
Just a few weeks before the Games, though, while high-altitude training in Colorado, Anthony's hyper-flexible feet had struck again. Ironically, he'd stumbled on a wheelchair access ramp. But though the injury was healing well, on his return to Auckland, Anthony couldn't resist teasing his coach and family with an exaggerated limp.
You gotta be kidding, aren't you?
January the 26th. Anthony has won a place in the 100 metres butterfly final. The 100 is not his specialist event, but Anthony has high hopes of a medal.
Whatever I'm in for first place. And I'm there to win gold, that's the goal.
Mentally, as well as physically, Anthony is well prepared.
You know, you have to give respect to your competitors, to the conditions, to everything that's going to take place, simply because if you don't, it will beat you. Well, they will beat you. It's almost like doing your homework before you sit the test.
But no amount of homework prepares a swimmer for the nightmare of trouble with his goggles.
Unfortunately, they came dislodged when I dived into the pool. Halfway down the pool, I couldn't see anything, and I just prayed that the wall was coming up. But obviously, I was disappointed in a mistake that can happen to anybody, but hasn't happened to me in probably 10 years.
But there was no time to dwell on disappointment with the 4x200 metre freestyle relay the same night.
And there was no way I was going to let the New Zealand team down. We had a shot at a medal. I swam my lifetime best time by about 1.5, almost 2 seconds on the relay with the fastest split of the team. And then when the night was over, people had treated the New Zealand relay team as if we'd won a gold medal, and we felt fantastic. I felt great. When I went to sleep that night, I had a smile on my face, and I had the confidence that I knew the 200 was in 3 days' time.
To stay close to Anthony during the Games, brother Adrian got a job working on the computer system that drove the scoreboard. What's more, Adrian just couldn't let Anthony have all the attention in the water. January the 29th, Anthony's 200 butterfly final.
This was a day I'd been looking forward to for months and months and months, and no one was going to ruin it. And I was thinking to myself, Anthony, the next time you exit this building, you'll be the Commonwealth champion in the 200 butterfly, defending champion, returned, and you have the title for a second time. Prior to the race, discussing it with Hilton, we weren't going to make a race of it. We were going to go out and win going away, win comfortably, and we were going to go for a great time. I talk myself through my body, everything, all the way from my toes right up to my head. For example, okay, quads, you're going to give me a lot of power now. Let's give that immense kick. Okay, triceps, I want you to give me a tremendous extension at the back of the stroke. Really pull the stroke over now. Do you understand what I'm saying? and I talk through the muscles and the joints, and so I'm trying to be at one with my body. It was almost like, okay, Anthony, you can sit back, you can relax, and you can just watch this race, almost watch it from within and go through the motions.
Hey, your mark.
Now the race was the finest race I've ever swum, and I took it first through the first 50 meters, and there was already no one with me. And coming off the wall, I remember saying, stay under the wake, because there's a tremendous wake that comes with the swimmers breaking up on top of the surface, and I was enjoying it. And sometimes if I get ahead, I feel like, Anthony, maybe I should draw back a little bit. Maybe I should just be a little more conservative so I have something to go. But this time around, something said, stay with it. The third 50 was where I take it and I own it. And I have a unique breathing pattern where I breathe 2 and don't breathe 1. Breathe 2 and don't breathe 1, giving me more oxygen to use on the last 50 meters. I came off the wall, and almost on the first breathing stroke, because when your head is out of the water, you can hear the roar of the crowd, and it goes under, you can bubble, 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 and then you can hear the roar and the bubble, bubble. Well, on the first breath, I couldn't believe the roar of the crowd. It's like nothing I'd ever heard before. And at that moment, a conscious thought came into my mind, Anthony, this is your proudest moment. Really enjoy this. And I felt like I was going to let my emotions go and just be a part of the moment and enjoy the moment.
This is home. As New Zealanders all around me right here. It's almost like my homecoming, if you will.
Recording the fastest time in the world in the last 12 months, Anthony Mosse, representing New Zealand.
There will be other challenges that I will have in my life, obviously, but what I want to do later on in life, and this is something that will come eventually, is transfer the type of work ethic I've developed in the swimming pool to any type of career. The enjoyment that I have in it, the work ethic, the goals that I can set myself. It's almost like a jigsaw puzzle, and I just change the picture and move it to somewhere else. Well, in swimming, there's nothing better than having that jigsaw puzzle all put together. And then, obviously, the racing is fantastic, but when you touch and you can turn and you're satisfied, that's what makes me really happy.